Have you ever faced just a huge, complex objective, maybe at work or, a personal project, even just learn something new, and wished you had some kind of universal cheat sheet, like a systematic way to break it all down?
Yeah.
Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating concept
hmm
that offers pretty much exactly that.
That's right. Our mission today is, well, it's to demystify something we call Task Agnostic Steps, or TAS for short. This deep dive is all about understanding how you can take even the most complex goals, I mean, really complex ones, and break them down into these fundamental, truly universal
Like
actions.
building blocks.
Exactly like building blocks. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to quickly grasping the core mechanics behind any process. It doesn't matter how unique it seems on the surface, you'll start seeing the patterns everywhere.
And to guide us through this, we've been, well, immersing ourselves in a pretty detailed set of instructions and guidelines. It's a very precise methodology for identifying and extracting these powerful universal building blocks of action.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. What exactly is a task agnostic step, a TAS? And I guess what makes it agnostic?
Right. So at its core, a TAS is really about systematically finding and pulling out those fundamental, reusable, and abstract actions from basically any complex objective.
Right.
The whole point is to break down big, often messy goals into actions that fit a very specific conceptual framework.
And the agnostic part.
Yeah, the agnostic part means it's truly independent of any specific field or context. Like imagine a master chef, a brilliant software engineer, and maybe a marathon runner. They all do wildly different things, right? But with TAS, you're trying to find the common universal actions they all perform. Things like maybe plan strategy, execute action, or review performance, those kinds of things. Okay, yeah, I see. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. You mentioned a framework. This isn't just some vague idea. There are specific characteristics.
Precisely. There's a conceptual framework with 6 core characteristics that define what makes a step truly agnostic. This is, how you ensure it's a universal tool, not just tied to one specific task.
Okay, lay 'em on us.
All right. First, there's generality. A TAS describes an action you could perform in multiple, seemingly unrelated tasks or even industries. Second, reusability. It means you can apply it again and again across different scenarios. Makes sense. Third, abstraction. This is key. It's free from domain-specific jargon, proper nouns, or super specific details. It focuses on the method or the approach rather than a specific outcome or the subject matter.
So instead of write code for the login page, it's more like,
Maybe something like translate concepts into implementation, or even just implement component, much more general. Fourth is action-oriented. It can always be expressed as a clear, concise verb-noun phrase like define scope. Fifth, independence. It represents a logical, sort of self-contained unit of work or a decision point within a larger process. And finally, number 6, sequential potential. Feels like it could be a step in some kind of general problem-solving approach or project management or design thinking.
wow, okay. That's quite specific. So what does this all mean for you listening right now, understanding this PA's thinking? It's not just theoretical, is it?
Not at all. It's a genuinely practical framework. Anyone looking to gain knowledge quickly, approach problem solving more effectively, or manage projects better can use this. Imagine, like you said, a CEO trying to understand how her marketing team's agile sprints relate to her R&D department's, waterfall methodology.
Yeah, they seem totally different on the surface.
Exactly. But by applying TS thinking, she could abstract their workflows. She might suddenly see that both teams actually define scope, allocate resources, and review progress. They just use different names. And that's the power. It bridges these seemingly unrelated processes. It helps unlock hidden efficiencies. It makes you not just informed, but strategically insightful.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But before we can actually start, decomposing things, there's some prep work involved, right? Our sources mentioned a meticulous first phase.
Indeed. You can't just jump in. It all starts with setting your compass, so to speak. First step, define the specific high-level goal. You need to clearly articulate a single overarching goal, broad enough to contain multiple sub-actions, but specific enough to actually guide your breakdown.
So not just improve sales, maybe more like develop and launch a new online marketing campaign for product X.
Exactly. Much better. Then, the next couple of steps are really about internalizing the core principles of TAS and reviewing those criteria we just talked about. What makes an action truly agnostic? These principles become your North Star. They guide every decision you make during decomposition. You're constantly asking yourself, does this action apply across different industries? Is it free from specific jargon? Does it focus on the method? Can I phrase it as verb-noun?
Got it. And it's not just about what you extract, but also how it's formatted. You mentioned that's critical for making it reusable later.
Absolutely critical. Step 4 is understand the target data structure. You need to know the structure where these universal steps will be stored. Think of it like creating a universal recipe card template for each step. The structured format, usually something like JSON, with clear fields for unique ID, a concise name, a detailed description, a category. It ensures it's easily shareable, searchable, even usable by software systems down the line. It becomes a truly reusable building block.
Okay, so the structure matters.
Yeah.
And the content quality, too.
Right. That's step 5. Grasp presentation guidelines for content quality. These aren't about extraction directly, but they inform the quality of what you write. For instance, the guidelines might say the name field should always be a concise, action-oriented verb-noun phrase, and the description needs to be a detailed explanation of the step's core purpose, what it aims to achieve, and its general applicability.
Okay, preparation done. We've sharpened our conceptual tools, aligned our mindset. How do we actually start the fascinating challenge of dissecting a big goal into these universal, repeatable actions? Phase 2, right?
Yes.
Right, phase 2. This is where we really, as you said, get our hands dirty. We begin with step 6, initial goal decomposition. This is essentially brainstorming. You break down your high-level goal into all its logical, sequential actions or phases. Use a mind map, flowchart, bullet points, whatever works. Just get it all out there. The key here is just capture all the apparent steps first. Don't worry too much about agnosticism yet. Just get them down.
And then you filter. Step 7, identify potential TAS candidates. This is where you start applying those identification criteria from phase 1. You look at your brainstormed list. If an action seems like a strong candidate for being agnostic, you mark it. If it's too specific, like your example, enter the username. You try to identify the underlying agnostic action.
So enter username might become.
Could become provide input data, or maybe authenticate identity, depending on the broader context. Or say, refuel the secondary car. That's super specific. The agnostic action might be replenish resources. You're really looking for the fundamental type of action, stripping away all the unique context. If something's way too broad, like do research, you'll need to break that down further. The outcome here is a preliminary list of potential TS names, all as verb-noun phrases.
Okay, and this next step, step 8, this sounds like where the real abstraction magic happens, where specific ideas become universal concepts.
It really is. This is refine and abstract candidate steps. You take each potential candidate from your preliminary list and you rigorously work on it. First, abstract. Rephrase any remaining domain-specific language into general terms. Ensure it truly describes the method or approach. Then, consolidate split. Look for candidates that are basically saying the same thing and combine them. Or, if a candidate seems too big and contains distinct substeps, split it up.
Like if you had plan meeting and schedule meeting.
Yeah, maybe those become just coordinate event or something similar. Depends on the nuance you want. And finally, name formulation. You meticulously make sure each step's final name is that concise, action-oriented verb-noun phrase we keep talking about, like kickoff, dive deep, finalize decision. Make sure it aligns with the guidelines.
Okay, so we've gone from a big goal to a refined list of abstract actions. Now, how do we turn these into, like, fully fledged, documented, task-agnostic steps, ready for actual use? Phase 3.
Exactly. Phase 3, building the blueprint. Step 9 is populate the TAS data structure. For each refined TAS candidate you landed on, you create a complete entry conforming to that standardized format we talked about earlier. So you give it a unique, maybe a UUID or some kind of hash. You use the refined verb-noun phrase as the name, like join channel. Then you write a detailed description. This explains its core purpose, the typical actions involved, what it aims to achieve. But remember, keep it general. Focus on the how and its broad applicability. You also assign a category from a predefined list, maybe init for initialization steps, analysis for examination steps, refactoring for improvement steps, etc. And you write a concise purpose, which is like a shorter summary of the step's main goal.
And remember, the source material mentioned some optional but recommended fields to make these even richer.
That's right, very useful optional fields. You can add keywords. These should be relevant, general keywords. For join channel, maybe keywords like collaboration, communication, network. You can add applicability notes, These are general observations about common patterns or variations across different domains, but again, without getting domain specific. Then, crucially, examples of usage. Provide maybe 2 or 3 examples, but they must also be abstract. They illustrate the steps application in different types of scenarios.
So for join channel, an example might be connecting to a project discussion forum or subscribing to a real-time data feed.
Perfect examples, both abstract, showing different contexts. And finally, you can describe the typical inputs and typical outputs. Again, use abstract terms. Inputs might be things like unstructured data or defined problem statement. Outputs could be synthesized insights or prioritized options.
This systematic approach, populating everything carefully and sticking to the guidelines, that seems key to creating something genuinely useful and understandable by anyone, like that universal blueprint idea.
It is absolutely key. Consistency and clarity are paramount.
Okay, so we've done the identification, the abstraction, the detailed documentation. The hard work seems done. But now, quality control, right? Phase 4. How do we make sure these TAs are truly agnostic and ready for prime time?
Exactly. Phase 4 is all about review and validation. It's an iterative loop, really. First, step 10, validate agnosticism and generality. You have to reread everything, the name, description, purpose, examples, inputs, outputs for every single TAS you generated. The check is, does any part accidentally slip in domain-specific jargon, proper nouns, or highly specific outcomes? If you find any, you have to go back and abstract or rephrase it. Make sure it aligns with those core TAS characteristics.
Okay, check for agnosticism. What else?
Step 11. Ensure clarity, conciseness, and readability. Review all the text. Is it clear? Is it grammatically correct? Is it concise? Are the names proper verb-noun phrases? Is the purpose statement sharp? Are descriptions comprehensive but not rambling? Is it free of jargon? You're checking against those presentation guidelines here. And step 12, verify schema conformance. This is more technical. Does the final output, usually that JSON array, strictly adhere to the predefined schema or structure? Are all required fields present? Correct data types? Are enum values valid? Is the id properly formatted? Are length constraints met?
Right, the technical check. So after all these meticulous steps, what if something doesn't quite fit? You find some jargon or the description is fuzzy. Is it back to the drawing board?
Well, not necessarily the whole drawing board, but yes, you go back. And that's a crucial point because this whole process isn't really linear. Step 13 is iterate and refine. If any step fails, any validation check, agnosticism, clarity, schema conformance, you must return to the relevant previous step or steps to refine the content. It's actually really common to go back and forth between, say, decomposition, detailing, and then validation. You might refine a description, which then makes you realize you need to split the step, which means revalidating everything.
So it's a loop until it's right.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to produce a robust, well-defined set of tasks that truly serves as that useful universal cheat sheet.
Okay, and just to quickly recap for everyone listening, the inputs you need to even start this whole process are pretty specific, aren't they?
They are. You need that initial high-level goal you want to decompose. You need the conceptual framework that defines what a task actually is. You need the JSON schema or data structure rules for how it needs to be organized. And you need those design guidelines for making sure the content is clear and well presented. And the final output always is that single collection, that JSON array usually, containing all the carefully extracted and validated task entries.
Right. Well, today we have certainly explored the fascinating world of task agnostic steps. We've covered this really rigorous methodology to identify and define them. We journeyed from understanding their core nature to systematically breaking down complex goals, refining those abstract ideas, structuring the data, and really ensuring the quality of these universal actions.
And, this raises, I think, an important question for you listening right now. How might applying this kind of structured thinking, this process of abstracting and generalizing steps in your own daily tasks, maybe your learning endeavors, or the complex problems you face, how might that change the way you approach them? Could you perhaps start to build your own personal library of reusable agnostic actions for success?
That's a great thought. Imagine applying this framework beyond just technical stuff. Think about planning your next big project or learning a new language, maybe even just tackling household chores more efficiently. If you start looking for the patterns, abstracting the actions, suddenly you're not just doing tasks anymore. You're actually building a reusable system for success, making yourself quicker, more efficient, and truly well-informed. Food for thought.